if you admit openly that in order to achieve power, you're willing to lie as long as it increases your odds, that's literally like, I am a badass. Wait. That is an open. Wait. Let me finish.
No.
I let you ramble. You gotta let me finish.
Act like
you gotta look. I'm not saying.
No, you can't.
Wait. I think it. Wait. Let me finish. Let me finish.
No.
I'll just meet you then, and then you'll just have to wait because you want to be on the show.
Fine, be a cock.
Okay. Wait. Okay. So you just be quiet. Thank you.
Let's get into the meat and potatoes of why I'm actually here.
Okay. Can you introduce yourself first? I think some people might not know who you are.
It would be surprising if they don't, but I am the Yankee Tankie.
What is the Yankee Tankie?
Good philosophical question. What is the Yankee Tankie? What would I consider the Yankee Tankie? It's a character. It's a commentary on streamer culture while still holding the actual valid positions that I have, just a little bit bastardized for the views.
What you mean? Are you saying that like all the screaming and performance stuff is like Andy Kaufman? It's like all for show?
It's a character. I'm playing a character. I ultimately agree with the positions that I hold, but I'm playing a character. I'm trying to, act a little bombastic, act a little schizo, if you will, to get people drawn into the conversation in the first place.
So, do you think that, and this is I guess before we get into meat and potatoes of it, do you ever think that you acting schizophrenic before saying these beliefs, and I'm just putting it that way because that's how you put it, could possibly give your beliefs a bad look because the people will think, well, then the schizophrenic people believe that. I'm not going to believe that because I don't want to look like a schizophrenic person.
I believe that schizo theory is the basis of creating a new perfect society.
That I have no idea what any of that means. Can you translate that?
So I'm schizo, and then you apply
when you say you're schizo, do you mean you're actually schizophrenic?
Not technically,
okay.
But I give the appearance as is, and by acting as extreme as I am, I get the initial views in, but once you will actually have an opportunity to actually hear my well thought out perspectives, you actually will be convinced that not just does my schizo character make sense, but it's the only logical position to get people drawn in with all of the info war reality that we're facing here today.
So, two comments before we get into meat and potatoes of it. Are you familiar with that guy who got in his underwear and jumped on the Libertarian stage during that one debate in 2012, I think, and he just like started dancing around in his underwear at the Libertarian Party convention? Are you familiar with that video?
No, but I can guarantee, based on how you're describing it, that was not a tasteful example of schizoism.
Yeah, so I mean, you can keep doing it because ultimately, in my view, you help my political positions by acting the way you do. But a genuine advice to you, don't you worry that you'll never be seen as anything more than a clown show, and a sad clown show at that, considering the history with Caleb Maupin and everything else? And you should work to maybe redefine yourself, or maybe change your character if you wanted to move forward and find success.
I think that the condition of the country as it's worsening will make these arbitrary things that under normal political atmospheres would make, what I'm doing impossible actually possible.
It is true that as the conditions get worse, it's easier for crazy people to take over. Germany is an example of that. Russia's an example of that. Yeah, I mean, that's true. That is true. So, maybe
I wouldn't agree with that, obviously, but you're coming from a similar place.
Okay. What was the other question I was going to ask you? I forgot. It probably wasn't that important anyway. Okay. So into the meat and potatoes of the issue. So the Rage Against the Rage Against the War Machine rally was yesterday in DC. Did you go?
I was not able to go because I have a job and I have adult responsibilities, but I kept a close eye on it, and I saw that you were also at the protest.
Yes, I did go to the rally. I live right outside of DC. It was Sunday. I had nothing else to do. I might have had a hangover, but I was like, might as well go. And it was about 4.5 hours, like 5 hours long. It was really long. I think excessively long. I could tell by the end of it that people were getting pretty exhausted. People started leaving before the march even happened. I didn't even go to the march because it was like I was already there for 4 hours, right? How many times can you say stop sending weapons over and over for 4 hours before you've gotten the picture? By the end of it, people were like ranting about Bitcoin, and like I don't know why people were talking about Bitcoin by the end of it. It just kind of felt like they put 19 people up there, and a lot of them don't get to be on a stage in front of a crowd that often, so they just wanted to like convince everybody of everything they believe. So they started talking about central banking and cryptocurrency, like everything. What was your impressions of the event? What did you think of the event?
Well, I thought the event was spectacular because it brought together so many different people of different political affiliations that all agree with this very simple concept that we need to stop sending billions of dollars to Ukraine, and we need to start actually take care of things at home, right? I think that's the fundamental thing that I got from that. And you're describing, these people talking about Bitcoin, talking about whatever, their perspective would be, right? I think that's just showing just the examples of just how many different political ideologies were willing to put aside their political differences to actually fight to end this war in Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even like a necessarily a critique of the content of like I can't believe they talked about Bitcoin. It's more of I guess like stay on point. Like if you're going to like an anti-war rally, why the hell are you telling me about central banking and cryptocurrency? I'm here to talk about like the 10 different points on this list. I think the point. I think the problem was. For one thing, they wanted to book as many speakers as possible because they wanted to bring as many different communities together as possible. But then when you book those many speakers, they actually have to speak. And then they also added music to the list of people doing that like old type, like acoustic music that you have to do if you're a dirty old hippie, like Phil Collins, stuff like that.
Sure.
And so it just became like excessively long. And then they had video conference call-ins from Roger Waters and other people that made it even longer. And a lot of it also, like the Ron Paul section was really kind of depressing to me because he just was rambling. And like Biden has gaffes. Ron Paul felt like the stereotypical version of Biden that people had in his head during his speech. I didn't even comprehend half of what he was saying. Did you get that impression from his section?
From my perspective is that Ron Paul has just been in this game for a long time, and yeah, he's aging. I don't deny that. But at the end of the day, Ron Paul is on the side of ending this war, and so is Jackson Hinkle, so is people like Tara Reid. I don't think she was a speaker, but she was on Tucker Carlson, talking about this rally that was going on in DC. You have a lot of these people that all agree with doing this. And I hear your criticism, right? This idea that, okay, it was too long, too many old school kind of stuff. What it gets right down to is that, you have different forces all coming together, and there's going to be a lot of these contradictions. But as long as we're still fundamentally all against this war, that's energy that we can bring into crushing the war machine of the U.S. imperialists.
Okay, so let's start getting into the content meat and potatoes. That was just like kind of annoying to me. Like I would have been annoyed if that was like a pro-Ukraine rally and it was that long and had acoustic music and they started talking about like we need to fix the dams in America. We need more beavers. It's like, wait, what? Why are we? I don't know why we're talking about beavers. So the first question I have to ask you, and this is just to start in an area that I think we should all be able to agree on. Scott Ritter had when he got booted from the event, when he left the event, however that took place, we don't know exactly how it happened, but he was no longer at the event and he wasn't happy about it. He did still end up, I guess, due to him being booked and canceling and wanting to still go, he did still speak at the Center for Political Innovation, which is Caleb Maupin's group, which you were a part of at one point. You have left it since and like called it a call and have denounced type of actions, Caleb Maupin. But
could I interrupt for one moment?
Sure.
Just because you were talking on the CPI. So I should supply some context so people actually understand the whole CPI situation. Since I have signed that Medium article, I've actually publicly gone against the people who have signed that document. Internally, there was a lot of issues with how they were dealing with Caleb Maupin's
you just said the Medium article. You didn't say what the Medium article is about. A lot of people might not know. Caleb Maupin is not exactly a household name. Can I just quickly say? So Caleb Maupin liked to talk about spanking, and sometimes he brought those conversations up with people who did not want to talk about spanking, and it was extremely inappropriate. Some might even say it was sexual harassment. And there was also a point where he was giving money to one of the people who were associated with his organization for sexual favors. And that was why he got in a lot of trouble. And yeah, that's the story behind that. And you were part of the Medium article that kind of broke that out. But
yes,
Dewey, I don't want to concentrate on this. I wanted to get to my question. That was just like a quick side about where Scott Ritter went. Scott Ritter had no place at any rally anywhere ever. Do you agree with me on that?
I think that Scott Ritter is a obviously complicated individual that has done some pedophilic kind of stuff, which is, I can't speak on that because I haven't done enough research on that. But I can tell you that his anti-imperialist politics is genuine. I don't know really enough about the accusations to talk about them, so I'm not going to speculate on those accusations to any extent.
Okay, so for those who do not know, Scott Ritter has been convicted and sent into the doghouse over trying to sext minors, people who publicly, not publicly, but told him, hello, I am 15, and he still sent them nude photographs of himself. I mean, he engaged in something that is very immoral. And the logs that he had with the person is publicly available online. You can really read how disgusting a lot of this is. Now, I am of the feeling that if you are a convicted pedophile who has tried to molest children, tried to engage with children in that manner, that if you want to re-enter society after being rehabilitated, that like I believe in rehabilitative justice, right? But a lot of the people on that stage are the same people who talk about pedophilic cabals, who are very angry at Jeffrey Epstein, who talk all the time about the need to stop human trafficking. All issues, while I don't go to the same lengths as they do when they talk about the cabals and the deep state, and I don't believe all that nonsense, I agree with them in content when they talk about Jeffrey Epstein and his terrible actions and the badness of these acts. Giving this guy a platform could just lead to more children being harmed if he gets enough of money, power, fame, and attention. This is somebody who kind of showed who he is, and I feel like we should not be bringing him to these events. Not to mention, having a convicted pedophile on your speakers list is just, oh my God. Like, did they do no background check on him? Like nothing? Because they only kicked him out like a week before.
I think that they did not know who they were platforming, fundamentally. I think that's what it gets down to. But at the end of the day, though, frankly, I don't know how much it matters, any of these types of things. Like you pointed out how there's like white nationalists that were at this protest, or people that were former white nationalists that some people have corrected me on that are now communist, right? That's just assume that, these are all people that are terrible, that shouldn't be at this protest, None of that's going to matter if we die in a nuclear holocaust.
Okay, so I think you're referring to Matthew Heimbach. I documented that Matthew Heimbach, who is the former communications director for the American Nazi Party, founder of the White Students Union, and an organizer for the Charlottesville rally that ended in a terror attack that killed people. He was
the Uru movement was also there, so
they were there too. And I guess for me, the problem I have with allowing Nazis at your rally is that it's like allowing Nazis in your bar. You allow one Nazi in your bar. Let me finish. Let me finish, please. You allow one Nazi in your bar, then there's going to be a second Nazi in your bar, and before you know it, you're the Nazi bar. If you allow Nazis into a political movement, definitely when it's not like, this isn't like a thing where it's like, we have like, this is the, if we don't allow the Nazis in, like the world's gonna collapse, right? They could have easily just said, no Nazis, leave, don't be here. Just like they did with Scott Ritter, and they should have done with other people who were on the speakers list. But they didn't, and he was there, and he got to talk to people and try to get them to join his movement, which was the point of him being there.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. When Chris Smalls organized the labor union for Amazon in Staten Island, New York, did he go up to the Amazon workers and ask, so who here is a racist? And who here is a transphobe? And who here is a homophobe? And who here is a misogynist? Okay, who is left? All right, let's start a union. No, that's not what Chris Smalls did. Chris Smalls went to the warehouse in Staten Island and he organized everyone. And that's fundamentally what we have to do. We have to organize everyone against this war because nothing matters. It doesn't matter who hates who based on their color of skin or their gender identity or their sexuality. Look, I'm working with people that I don't agree with on social issues. People like Willie Braggs, for example. Shout out to him. He's a good friend of mine, good supporter, and he's out there of I think it's KBS Media, something like that. But we don't agree on social issues, but both him and me are standing together against nuclear war. We can't be doing this like this leftist or right-wing version of this ideological purity test.
Okay, you have to have some purity testing to some level, or you're literally just unfiltered. Anyone can join. Anyone can be a part of this. Anybody can organize. If Chris Smalls organized a labor union and he was organizing a labor union, it would be a very bad idea for him to start allowing Nazis to organize the labor union as well. Because what are the Nazis going to do?
In the Staten Island.
Let me be clear.
There is literally Nazis at the Staten Island, New York warehouse. I mean, let me be clear. This is very different. This is very different. If somebody is personally a Nazi, that's terrible. But they're not actively trying to change the world. Go out there I'm making everybody Nazi. If this guy is somebody who was in communications workplace. This guy was not. This people at the Staten Island workplace, as far as I know, they weren't the communication directors for the Nazi Party and organizing rallies that ended terror attacks. With him was also people who were part of neo-Nazi terror groups. Let me ask you a question. Would it be a bad idea for them to have allowed ISIS sympathizers into the crowd saying, jihad against America, therefore we want them to lose in Ukraine, death to the Jews, death to this, death to that? Do you think you should have allowed Nazi sympathizers into the crowd? Do you think that, ISIS sympathizers into the crowd, would that have been a good idea? I think that fundamentally what is most important is ending a nuclear holocaust of the human species.
Do you think they should have given Matthew Heimbach a mic then and allowed him on stage?
I think that whatever is necessary
Can you
to
answer
stop
my question?
A nuclear I'm answering the question. Whatever is necessary to stop a nuclear holocaust from killing the human species.
So your answer is yes. You would allow ISIS sympathizers to speak.
Anyone that would be necessary to actually build a movement. And considering Scott Ritter has a mass following, despite some of his problematic past, it doesn't we need those people.
If a few children get molested along the way, you're still stopping the nuclear holocaust, right? It's.
If the alternative is literally a nuclear holocaust, then I guess that's a sacrifice that has to be made. It's a terrible sacrifice.
We got to enshrine this before I confront this point about nuclear holocaust, that you are comfortable working with literally anyone, ISIS,
if it's to prevent a nuclear holocaust.
Okay.
If it's to prevent a nuclear holocaust.
That rally is not going to prevent a nuclear holocaust. We aren't near a nuclear holocaust. You're fear-mongering.
Yes, we are, and it is closer than ever.
Okay, why is it so close? How do we know that Russia's about to launch the nukes?
We know that if the United States continues to send funding, that Russia will not allow to continue doing whatever the hell that they want. There is going to be a breaking point. There will be a point in which the Russian Federation their hand is forced to actually deal with the United States. And if it means losing the integrity of the sphere of influence of Russia, that literally means that they will defend that line. And I think that's a reasonable line to defend, because let's look at it this way. What if Russia or China or any of our foreign actors, let's talk about this, because this is an important example.
But you moved on. This is the second. This is important given the context of the first point. Okay, if Russia were to invade Canada, if China were to invade Canada and cause a conflict on the U.S. border, that is within the sphere of influence of the United States. The United States would have every right at that point to nuke Moscow. okay. First off, no, they wouldn't.
Yes, they would.
If Canada was to be invaded, it would be good. I think it would be smart of us to respond militarily and destroy the Russian military in Canada, because they would not be able to conduct an invasion of Canada. They would fail. If they can't win a war with a nation that has an interconnected highway system, they certainly can't invade a country over an ocean. So I think my first problem with this...
That's pointless jibber jabber. What's the point of that point?
Just to shit on the Russians. So my first point with this is, we have been sending guns and ammunition and bombs and everything to Ukraine for about a year now.
Since 2014.
For about it's intensified to an extreme extent for the last year. Before that, we did stuff as well, but that actually makes my point stronger. We've been sending weapons and ammunition and doing training and giving intelligence for 9 years to the Ukrainians. And for 9 years, the Russians haven't nuked. And in the last year, we have sent an astronomically bigger amount, even to the point where we're sending Abrams tanks. And there's some whispers about F-16 jets. Biden said that he won't. Wait, let me finish. I let you finish. You gotta let me finish. While Biden says, no, we're not going to set the F-16s, the same thing was said about the tanks. So who knows? And so we're sending more and more and more than ever. And Russia hasn't done any of the moves to actually properly do a strike. They haven't nuked anything. We see no claims from them saying we are going to nuke. At this point, we will nuke. They haven't even said that if you enter Crimea, we will nuke 100%. We are guaranteeing that. They're leaving it vague because you got to shut the fuck up, okay? I'm sorry. You gotta quiet down and let me finish my point. I let you finish after you rabbled on something that I don't think that was related. You got to let me finish.
I mean, you're rambling at this point. It's a bunch of jibber jabber.
I let you jibber jabber, so let me jibber jabber.
This is not jibber jabber. This is jibber jabbering what you're doing.
You gotta let me. Well, you're just not letting me say my point. You gotta let me say my point. You're on my show, okay? Now, my problem is, in all of these weapons and everything that's been sent over, Russia has made vague threats towards nuclear weapons. They have done nothing more than that. And I have no reason to suspect that they won't do anything more than that. Because if they were to use a nuke, it would do nothing but hurt Russia. It would hurt them diplomatically. It would isolate them. This is one of the few scenarios where China and India might agree to a price cap. This is one of the few scenarios where we're going to actually see American troops on the ground in Ukraine, which makes their war harder. There's radiological spillover that can go into Russia. There's a million different issues that would make this negative for them. Not to mention, Russia is on the planet. If the world explodes, so does Russia. They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. You got to shut the fuck up. Let me finish.
Okay, I get it. I get your point. Now, let me explain why that they are closer to nuclear war than ever, because you're totally missing the point entirely if you're jibber jabber. Okay, so yes, we have been sending aid for all this time, and we've watched this aid escalate and escalate and escalate, just like you were saying with Abrams tanks and talking about, sending U.S. jets to Ukraine and all this shit. When is it going to be boots on the ground? That is the question. And I know you have said it in the past, in our past debate, that you would love the idea of the United States going into Ukraine to push back Russia.
I never
so the question is this. No, you did say that, and you can look back at this prior debate. What
was that even in response to? I've always said that I don't want American troops on the ground unless this literally becomes a situation where Russia
it was
takes
in response. It was in response to me being hyperbolical towards you, saying something to the extent that that's what you actually want, and you basically embraced it. Okay,
I do not. So there's no world where I want to send American troops. I've said this so many times.
Anyone watching can watch the prior debate.
Okay, they can go watch it again. Give me more ad money and find nothing.
But ultimately, okay, when is it going to be U.S. troops on the ground? It's only a matter of time.
Why would it only be a matter of time? We sent weapons to Taliban, not the Taliban,
yes,
the Mujahideen. Wait, let me finish. We've sent weapons. Wait, let me finish my question. You gotta let me finish my question. If you don't let me finish my question, you can't answer it. We sent weapons to the Mujahideen for 10 years to the point where the Soviet Union lost and then proceeded to collapse, right? We never put troops on the ground. There's been a million different groups in the world that we've sent weapons and aid and stuff to. Why after Biden's made a commitment that we won't?
Afghanistan was not a proxy war for Russia. Okay, Afghanistan and the war on terror was a completely different conversation than what's going on in Europe
The
right
Soviet
now.
Union
Okay?
literally collapsed. I mean, that is the worst possible scenario for Soviet planners, in part due to their Soviet invasion and its failure. So I don't understand why the stakes now are tremendously higher than the stakes then was for the Soviet Union.
Polar war order. The Soviet Union was not in a position to dislodge the United States from being the sole superpower of maximum strength. As powerful as the Soviet Union was, they were not as powerful as the coalition that we are seeing between China and Russia and Iran and India and Pakistan and all these other different countries
Do you
that are moving
genuinely
away
believe
from the
that?
U.S. Yes, I do genuinely believe that, and the facts are right in front of us.
It's not a military agreement. They're not all a big alliance. If we were to go to war with Russia tomorrow, India would not join them.
That's the part you don't see. This is the reason why so many people, not just of the Ukrainian side, but so many leftists in general, do not understand the whole thing of what imperialism is. When Marxist-Leninists describe imperialism, it's not just when a big country invades a small country. Again, why Russia is not imperialist. It is when there is a financial system that is having power over the world, right? And that's the US dollar. That is the petrodollar. That is what the current system that is being threatened right now by the coalition between Russia and China and Iran and India and all these other countries that are moving farther and farther away from the United States and the British Empire. But to get back to the point, why is it that we are seeing why it's going to be a nuclear escalation in Europe right now? Is fundamentally because we know for a fact that the United States has an invested interest of maintaining their financial dominance over the world. And Russia and China threaten that. So what's the best way to be able to cut off Chinese oil supply? It's destabilizing Russia. It's overthrowing the Putin regime. That is why, at the end of the day, that this proxy war is such a heated thing that we're seeing in the world right now.
Okay, so first off, for BRICS, I've already said it's not a military agreement. If we were to go to war,
it doesn't have to be a military agreement.
Let me finish. I let you jibber jabber on your pointless shit. Let me jibber jabber. If Russia was to get invaded by the United States tomorrow, India would not jump to their defense, okay? China, maybe, but there's even a chance there they wouldn't because they haven't sent any weapons to Russia over Ukraine. So BRICS, when we talk about BRICS and you talk about the Soviet Union, let me finish. You gotta let me finish. You gotta be quiet. You gotta talk about
BRICS. Your brick fucking head.
You need to be quiet so I can finish my point. When we talked about the Soviet Union invading Afghanistan, that was a military invasion. There wasn't a point where it was like, well, maybe we can join the international coalition to apply economic pressure on the Afghan rebel. They couldn't do that. It was a military agreement. So what I'm talking about here is military. The Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. They fought there for 10 years. The Soviet Union then proceeded to, you're breathing really hard into the mic.
Why don't you understand?
So after the Soviet Union invaded, they then lost troops for 10 years. They gutted their economy. They lost so many people. It was a massive disaster. And then they left and their country collapsed before they used nuclear weapons. And now you say that the situation is so much more dangerous now because Biden might put troops on the ground because what's the big change here that makes it sure that they're going to use nuclear weapons when they haven't made any commitment to using them outside of vague threats, which would make sense to be doing if they're trying to apply diplomatic pressure to the West. I think you muted yourself. Wait, no, I muted you. Okay, continue.
Okay. The collapse of the unipolar world order. That is the difference, okay? The unipolar world order is no longer in a position in which it can maintain itself against the forces of China and Russia. It's not about military. The military is the last ground the United States has to actually even do anything. That's why things are escalating, okay? United States, the petrodollar is collapsing. You have Saudi Arabia and Israel. They're selling off their reserves of the US dollar to replace it with the Chinese yuan. You have a country like India, a former colony of the British Empire, that no longer wants to work with the United States and Britain. because it doesn't benefit them anymore. That's why they moved to working with, even with the border disputes that they have with China,
what does
they're
any of this
working
have
with
to do with
China
nukes?
and they're working with Russia. Everything to do with nukes, because if the unipolar world order is not in a position that it can financially maintain itself, it is now in a position that has to use its military dominance to try to maintain control of their unipolar world. And that is what is leading us to a possible nuclear disaster, because the United States is not going to let off the gas unless we, the people, actually organize a resistance against U.S. imperialism. That is the only way we're going to stop.
So you're saying we're going to send troops. You're making a hard commitment on that we're going to send troops to Ukraine, and they're going to be involved in active combat.
Yes.
You're making a commitment. I will bet you $100 on that right now.
I'll put $100 up for that too.
Okay.
Bet.
Fantastic. We both put $100 on it. Now, that's a great idea. Do you have any evidence of that happening in actuality? Like any evidence of the Biden administration preparing to send troops to be engaged in active combat? Do you have any like military document? Has there been any reporting showing like, hey, we see these troops being shipped out and they're in Ukraine and they're operating? You do. So you have evidence of troops in Ukraine.
No. So I have evidence of a historical pattern within just the context of this war in general. So the Biden administration, the Biden administration within the beginning of the first year of this official war, okay, during that first few months, he said that he would not send Abrams tanks because it would begin the escalations towards a third world war. This is exactly what the Joe Biden administration has done. And now they're sending Abrams tanks.
Mm-hmm. The conditions of the war, I think here's the reason I think they sent Abrams tanks. Since the beginning of the war, the situation has changed drastically. Nobody thought Ukraine was going to perform as well as it did. You didn't. I didn't. Nobody did. A lot of people thought this war would be over a lot sooner, and that's not the case. Even in the beginning, we didn't see all of this aid getting sent because the West, the collective, I hate using that term, but let's say the coalition thought that they would not last. But they did, and then the longer the Ukrainian government has been stable and has showed that they are able to fight, the more and more weapons have been sent, to the point where we've gotten to Abrams tanks. But there is no reason for the United States to get itself directly involved with troops. Definitely politically, that would be political suicide after the war in Iraq and Afghanistan that showed the American people, while they're willing to send weapons, are very much not willing to send their own boys and girls to go die. And we've seen no movements from the Biden administration in this direction that shows that they're moving towards this at all. I don't even think we've seen any really evidence brought forward by the Russians that they're moving towards doing this either.
So your counter evidence is
wait, counter evidence. I don't need to bring evidence of anything. You have to provide evidence. You said there's a historical precedent. That's not evidence.
Whatever. Your counter argument, rather, would be that then the Joe Biden administration lied to the American people.
Do you think? Technically, yeah. But I also think the conditions changed, and that's why he's sending Abrams tanks.
So why do you trust the Joe Biden administration or the Democratic Party in general?
Because I think it was the right move to send the Abrams tanks. I think at the start of the war. No. Let me finish. No. You asked me a question. Let me give you an answer. Okay. I believe that at the start of the war, Biden did not think it would ever be necessary for us to send Abrams tanks, because I also don't think it would get to this point where we're seriously talking about Ukraine taking back territory. The conditions have changed, and now we're willing to send Abrams tanks. So unless the conditions change to the point where the Biden administration thinks there's no other option but to send troops over there, which would be political suicide, extremely risky, result in the direct death of American servicemen, and would be the first direct confrontation between two nuclear powers ever, which would be a huge break of the historical precedent you respect so much, I have no reason to believe he's going to do that, and he has done nothing in that direction.
I disagree. I think that lying to the American people is a clear sign that the administration cannot be trusted to be truthful about their operations in Ukraine, and we shouldn't trust a word that they're saying.
Okay, so you believe that?
Yes.
Okay, here's my counter then. You trust the Russian government and a lot of what it's been saying, but it said before the invasion that they weren't going to invade. So why do you trust anything the Russian government had to say about anything, considering they lied about the fact that they weren't going to invade Ukraine?
Because the material conditions demand us to stand with anti-imperialist powers that allow us to actually gain control.
It's okay when they lie, but it's not
governments.
okay when Biden lies. So it's just different because they're Russians and special.
No, it's not because the Russians is special. It could be the case of the Chinese or the Indians or
so anybody that's
any
not America or
so
anybody that's against America are allowed to lie, and it's okay if they get away with it.
I'm saying that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter that they lied because it improves our odds of actually gaining political power within the United States.
Wait. So here's my commitment from you. So you're okay with lying if it increases your odds of getting political power?
I'm okay with lying in the context of actually trying to overthrow the actual liars, the ones that are oppressing all the people within this country, whether you own a small business, you're an average worker, you're part of the servant class, whether you're part of the permanently unemployed class, what have you. Any of the people, the American people, should be against the U.S. government because of the same people who bomb the Middle East are the same people who bomb the Middle East are the same people who oppress us on the streets.
Dog, this is the worst thing you could possibly say in any conversation. If you admit openly that in order to achieve power, you're willing to lie as long as it increases your odds, that's literally like, I am a badass. Wait. That is an open. Wait. Let me finish. No. Hey, I let you ramble. You gotta let me finish.
Act like
you gotta look. I'm not saying.
No, you can't.
No. Wait. Let me finish. Let me finish.
No.
I'll just mute you then, and then you'll just have to wait because you want to be on the show.
Fine, be a cuck.
Okay. Wait. Okay. So you just be quiet. Thank you. So the problem is I'm bad. I think it's bad when the United States lies, right? I don't think Biden should have made that we won't send tanks commitment at the start, whether he meant sending American tanks or anything. I don't think he should have made that commitment. I think it's bad that politicians in the West lie. You think it's okay for your side to lie as long as it gets you a gain strategically. That is literally admitting that you're a bad faith actor. Why should I talk to you if you're admitted like I will lie if it helps me?
Here's the facts, okay? You're admitting to me that you're okay with the Joe Biden administration lying. You're okay.
I said I'm not. I just told you I'm not.
You are.
I just told you I'm not.
But no, that's bullshit.
I'm telling you that Biden should never have made the commitment because then when he had to go back on it, people can be like, you're a liar. That's bad. He shouldn't have done that.
Okay, so he shouldn't have done that. So then,
would you say the same for Russia? That Russia shouldn't have lied about not invading? We're not going to invade Ukraine.
I think that there was other political forces within the country, and particularly the Communist Party of Russia, that wanted
wanted the Russian Federation to continue, or rather to actually invade the country. And for 8 years, just about, they did not invade the country.
So for that matter, yes. There was people who lie that
they didn't invade the country. They invaded Crimea. What do you mean?
I'm talking about Ukraine. Okay.
That is, it is Ukraine.
No, it's not.
It's internationally recognized by Ukraine. No. Okay, Russia does not determine what everybody else
I really
thinks.
don't care what the so-called Western international community.
The majority of countries condemned it.
The majority
of countries
in the world,
African countries, the majority of African countries condemned it. The majority of Asian countries condemned it. The majority of South American and Asian countries. That's not true.
African and Asia is supporting Russia.
Send me a link.
You know this information.
I'm telling you, you're a liar. I'm telling you, you're a liar.
I'm telling you, you're a liar.
You admitted that you're a liar. You said you will lie for political points. This is you lying for political points. You said you will lie, and this is an example of you lying.
A dishonest actor acting upon your own personal interest.
You admitted you're a dishonest actor.
You don't give a shit about the American people. You actually want a nuclear holocaust.
Earlier admitted you're a dishonest actor.
The side of Nazis in Ukraine.
You admitted earlier that you're a dishonest actor.
In Ukraine.
You admitted earlier that you're a dishonest actor. You said, I will lie in order to win. I think my side should lie if it means we get power. You're an admitted liar, and now you're accusing me of being a dishonest actor. Okay, let's check back in with him.
Going on in the world. You don't want to admit that there's a multipolar world. You don't want to admit that the American people have a future. You want all of us to die and be poor and be weak and be submissive to the U.S. imperialists. That is exactly, and probably that too.
Yeah. So it might surprise you, but I don't want everyone to die. I just don't think the Russians are going to nuke the planet that they're also on. Because if the world blows up, Russia blows up too. Where's the logic there?
Russia won't exist if it doesn't have access to Crimea.
They didn't have what?
They did have access.
Wait. So wait. Let me ask you this.
No.
Okay.
I wasn't done.
I got my trap card right here. You're done, okay? But you can continue and say everything. But I have a trap card in my hand, and you should fear it. Yankee Tankie. It's my ultimate wrestling move.
Your ultimate wrestling move is a reference to Yu-Gi-Oh!
What's wrong with Yu-Gi-Oh?
First of all, it's anime, so there's your first problem. But that's besides the point.
Okay, the facts are that you are okay with the nuclear holocaust, and you pretend you don't acknowledge that there is likely going to be. Yes, I'm saying. Okay. I mean, yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. You are dishonest.
Am I as dishonest as you, since you admitted that you're willing to lie in order to win?
That's what you do.
So wait, so you're saying we're both liars then? Is that your statement?
I'm saying that you cannot claim to be some sort of moral like.
Why are you criticizing me? Wait. I'm not lying, but let's say it was. Why could you criticize me for lying when you just admitted that you will lie and you want your side to lie if it means you win? Like, that's the thing about being a dishonest actor. This is the problem. You could have just said,
you can't complain about me lying if you lie all the time yourself.
I'm not, but I'm saying I'm not lying. You got to prove that I'm lying, but you're saying you're saying what my intent is.
We all know you're lying, Dylan. We're all know you're lying.
Show me proof of my intent that I want the world to explode, instead of just thinking, I don't think the Russians are going to nuke us, which is what the majority of people think.
You support the U.S. imperialists.
The majority of Americans support what we're doing in Ukraine. Does that mean the majority of Americans are liars?
The difference is the majority of Americans are propagandists. You, in particular,
why can't it be that I'm propagandized as well? Why can't I be a dumb
sheeple as well? You know exactly what you're doing.
How do you know that?
You know exactly what you're doing.
How do you know that?
You wouldn't be able to articulate that average Americans are not capable of articulating the same position you do if you didn't know that you were lying. You are intelligent enough to know you were lying.
But I don't think that it's going to start it. Like, what is, okay, is there any statement by the Kremlin that you can point to that proves that they're on the brink of using nuclear weapons? That isn't like a vague, what I'm talking about, a commitment. Like, we will use it in this scenario.
I could tell you exactly what Russia has done, that they rechanged their codes on how they handle nuclear arms, from using it in self-defense to being able to use it as a initial attack.
That's not a statement from the Russians. I mean, of course they're going to make posturing moves to be scary with it, but you got to show me like a commitment.
That's a massive policy change. That's a commitment.
That's not a commitment. No. Okay, a commitment.
Yes,
a commitment. Wait. You're misunderstanding what I mean by commitment.
No.
You misunderstand what I mean by commitment. A commitment is like, if they take Crimea, we will nuke them. That is a 100% commitment. And let me tell you why I don't think they're going to make that commitment. The reason they're not is that means if the Ukrainians actually do make it,
let me finish. No,
so the reason that they won't is because if they did make that commitment and the Ukrainians actually got the Crimea, they would have to use the nuke, or they would make it so their threats mean nothing and then nobody would fear their nukes. That's the problem with making a commitment and why they won't do it. And it could also end with the camera fell. It could also end with the world blowing up, which they don't want because they're in the world.
Okay. So now that you're done with this jibber jabber, okay, to be clear, you know exactly what you're doing. You're lying about your position. You're trying to change the lines of what is and isn't these particular definitions.
Commitment?
Just to fit your very nature.
Wait. What I was asking for with a commitment is like, hey, I said, is there any statement from the United States? I asked for any statement.
That is an artificial. It's artificial. You know that's artificial.
What do you mean? I know it's artificial. I said I asked for a statement from Russia showing a commitment to use it in a specific scenario. That's not what you showed me at all. What you showed me, like at the start of the war, they said we might deploy nukes in Belarus. That doesn't show a commitment to do it. That's like, oh, it's chest pounding and nothing more.
That's a policy change.
I didn't ask for a policy change. I'm asking for something that shows that they're going to use nukes.
Commitment. A policy
How
change
does that show that they're going to use nukes?
Yes, it is.
How does that prove that they're going to use nukes?
If policy change is not a commitment, can you tell me that if the United States changed its policy of Taiwan, on whether there's a one China policy or not, if they change the commitment, would that not change and how the United States operates?
That would change how the United States operates. But what I asked you was for a
commitment.
You're so brain dead. I asked for a verbal commitment about what scenario they would specifically use nukes in. Well, they keep it vague so they can have the threat floating over. Well, they never have to do anything.
Policy matters more than some strange statement.
So let me ask you a question. If the United States said, we are going to nuke Russia in 10 minutes, would that mean more or less than if America was to up their nuclear readiness level?
Repeat the question.
If the United States was to say, we will nuke Russia if they do not leave Ukraine, I'm changing to make it easier for you. Would that mean more or less than if America was to up their nuclear readiness level? Because that's a policy change, the nuclear readiness level. I would say the verbal statement means more because they can't shake that off. Because then afterwards they can be pointed at and laughed at if they didn't use a nuke. Where if you just up your nuclear readiness level, if you don't use a nuke, no one's gonna say that degrades American nuclear policy.
Here's why you're wrong.
Okay, so the reason why is because a policy change has a much more material reality than a statement when politicians lie all the fucking time.
Okay, let me run the scenario for you. In one scenario, the United States ups the nuclear readiness level. That's a policy change. You agree with me on that, right? Like if we either up our nuclear readiness level. Okay, so that's a material change. But my statement is if America was to say, we are going to nuke you, that ties them more to actually using nuclear weapons and is something that would scare me more. And the reason why is if they don't, what America did to themselves is degrade their nuclear respectability. Because if America makes a threat like that in the future, people are going to be like, remember that one time where they said they were going to do it, then they didn't do it. And now your nuclear weapons are becoming more and more useless as a tool of intimidation, which is the primary use on the international stage. So that's why America could up its nuclear readiness level 1,000,000 times without doing anything. That's why I'm saying it's all vague and they're doing non-committal actions.
American policies or any political policies from any particular states mean more than any statement because politicians lie.
You lie. You said earlier that you lie. If you lie, I lie, and politicians lie, then why are we even talking? Reality. We're all just talking heads then.
Yeah, everyone's just talking heads. Everything's propaganda. That's how things work. That's the real world.
Don't you try to hold yourself up to some standard of truth and respectability? Because I try to do that for myself.
Truth and respectability happens through your actions, not your words.
Okay, so this is like the idea. Okay, so your belief is solidly like you can lie to your audience if it advances your cause.
If it doesn't if it contradicts your actions, and if you lie about something that you're going to do something positive, and then you apparently don't do that positive thing, sure, that has negative consequences. But if you just say something that's negative, but what your actions do, say, for example, right? I talk all about the LGBTQ CIA agenda and all that stuff, right? But I work with plenty of gay and trans comrades all the fucking time. I'm willing to work with them on multiple different issues. I have no problems with them on an individual level. So fundamentally, my actions speak louder than my words.
If this is true, couldn't this logic be used to justify covering up war crimes and atrocities? Like for example, like...
No, because the actions was a war crime.
Well, but the Soviet Union engaged in like mass deportation of Poles and a lot of other bad things, okay? Whether you like the Soviet Union or not, they've engaged in some atrocities. Now, if you're a Soviet commissar and you're trying to figure out how to deal with the situation, under your logic, he can just say, wait, I don't need to deal with it. I can just cover it up, not tell the public, and be done with it.
Because there was actions in which were inherently negative.
Okay, so
if the actions were positive and you were, I don't know why you'd be covering up positive actions, but let's say you were covering up positive actions, whatever they were, increasing wheat production or something.
If you admit to, let's say the guy realizes it's a negative action, but if he admits to it, that can compromise the communist cause because they could say, hey, our communist overlords are brutes. They murder, they kill. In fact, that's actually what happened when Gorbachev, opened up.
See, that's a bastardization because
that's what happened in the Soviet Union. When the Gorbachev started to free up the press and they opened up some of the Soviet archives and people looked into stuff, people got really angry. Sure. People got really angry, and that partially led to the collapse of the Soviet Union. And that was because when the Soviets were honest about how brutish they were, that led to their own people hating the government.
Sure. And I mean, under the Soviet Union, that's when the Soviet Union was beginning its liberalization process. It's a different conversation. I thought we were talking about like the Soviet Union under Stalin or Lenin.
Don't you think it's bad that that any country would ever have to continuously lie to their people in order to justify their existence as a state?
I mean, the United States does it all the time.
Isn't that bad though?
I mean, it depends on the context of what the world would be without that state. The United States, as it currently exists, that would be a net positive. The Soviet Union, as it existed under Stalin,
just completely
that was a
committed
net positive.
to like, we're allowed to lie. You guys can't lie. It's bad when you lie, but if we lie, as long as it advances our cause, that's okay.
Because it's based on your actions.
So nobody will ever believe anything you say now, because if, let's say, you, like for example,
my actions speak louder than my words.
If you saw
my
the most
let's say
there was a communist coming up through the ranks, right, in America for the first time. Okay, let's say it's this base new communist, and you really like what they're doing, and they're like 30% popularity in America. This is like crazy. You're like, oh my god, we have a shot. Then you watch them rape somebody. In advancement of your cause, the best thing to do would be quiet for you, right? So would you be quiet in that scenario, or be like, that woman had to make a sacrifice to the cause, I shouldn't tell anybody about it?
But first of all, you're not supplying the full context. So what is the context of not just a communist regime not existing in the United States, because that's one thing. Would the country literally collapse? Would people be being raped and murdered and killed and slaughtered in our society if the alternative is not communism? Well, then in that scenario, well, of course, because a lot more people are going to get raped and killed and slaughtered in that scenario. But if the scenario is that, we just stay on the same track as we're doing, as fucked up as it is, then obviously you would want to reveal that. So it depends on the context of what time period and what the conditions are in the country.
Because for me, I told you that it would advance communism in the United States, which for you is the good thing, right? So if that's beneficial to your cause, doesn't it make sense under the logic that you would lie about the rape in order to cover it up and to save people with communism?
No, that wouldn't make sense, because under that scenario, we're just talking about the advancement of communism. That in itself is not inherently of a certain ethos, which is inherently worth supporting.
Okay, so if it was going to pass a bill that would, lower the rate of homelessness or something, then you would lie about the rape.
No. Okay, so I'm talking about if it were to be dramatically worse. Let's say whoever the person's running
how much is
right?
How much moral worth does that woman's rape has? Like, how good does it have to be for you to cover up the rape?
It depends on the context of, how many people will be raped and murdered and slaughtered if the communist doesn't win. For example, if the communist is running against a literal Nazi, for example, and that Nazi has a lot of political aspirations to, say, recreate Hitler's he had these like camps, I understand, that were involved with basically prostituting Jewish people, which is absolutely disgusting. Okay. Well, obviously that would be a worst case scenario, that you would be in a situation that for the good of the American people, you would have to cover up a terrible crime.
Wow. You know what? I'm going to make a commitment. I will never cover up a rape. A commitment you cannot make.
I will never attempt to cover up a rape, assuming that I'm under this mysterious.
But you said, wait. Is this one of those lies you said you would do? Because you said that I'll lie in order to help my side. Admitting that you would cover up a rape would be pretty bad. Are you lying about that? Or are you telling the truth about that?
All I'm saying to you is that under the conditions that are this extreme, I will do whatever is necessary to prevent those extreme conditions. But with that being said, though, this is a magical scenario that doesn't exist in the real world.
Covering up rapes of politicians magical? Like that never happened?
It's jibber jabber.
A politician's never raped somebody? Like that's not a crazy
under
thing?
The very specific scenario that we're talking about has never happened.
Well, I mean, the idea of you being close to somebody successful, like as a politician, that is the imaginary part of the scenario. But I put those across.
That's not the only imaginary thing. You're talking about whether there was a communist politician at 30% support.
I agree. That's not happening in the United States either. I agree.
Anytime soon, yeah, I agree. Like, there is no chance within
not in your lifetime?
The American system.
Not in your lifetime?
I wouldn't go that far.
But so how is it not possible?
Not within this decade. Well, it's not possible in the context of the time period we exist in.
So, like, rape's gonna stop happening in the future?
I mean, hopefully. I mean, that would be a goal
Okay.
that any given society should have, right?
Well, yeah, but I don't think rape's gonna end in the next 50 years unless you're able to stop like all crime, right? I mean, okay, whatever. This is a part
Well,
of the point.
sure.
Let's continue.
I mean, yeah, we're talking about utopianism.
I'm gonna do you a favor, and we're gonna drag it away from any justification of rape. So back to the idea that if Russia doesn't have control of Crimea, then they will nuke the world and the world will explode because they have no other option. Why are you so positive that if they were not to have control of Crimea or access to Crimea, they would have no choice but to nuke the world? For example, Russia's flagship, the Moskva, was sunk. If their fleet's disabled, then like that, like really like undermines a lot of the purpose to even have the base for. I don't understand why they would say we don't have Crimea, therefore we don't want any of Russia. Having having all of Russia is still better than having none of it.
Okay, can I answer your question now?
No.
No? Okay.
Now you
Anyhow,
can. I allow it now.
So, why is it that Crimea is such a vital thing for Russia? Well, because it's their only access to the Black Sea, which means their only access to international markets. None of the other ocean territory that Russia has on their border is accessible 12 months out of a year for the most part. I mean, with a few rare exceptions, right? They just don't have the industrial capabilities of, relying on railroads as their only means in which to import and export goods and resources. It would cause such an economic devastation for Russia that losing access to Crimea, they would basically cripple Russia. I mean, there's a reason why that is part of the sphere of influence of Russia. It's fundamental for their very existence.
It's so okay. Russia has existed without Crimea in their control before. In fact,
no, they hasn't.
In fact,
no, they've always had partial.
Do you know? Wait. Are you familiar with the history of Russia through its existence, like how it expanded from its time from the Baron of
yes,
Moscow?
I mean,
like it existed for much of its history without. Yeah, okay, but it can't. The idea that Putin would make the decision that if I can't have access to Crimea, then the world must die, and that means Russia as well. That is a crazy assumption to make. Because if any rational actor that has two buttons, that's like, well, this button means that we'll lose Crimea, but I get to keep the rest of my country. But again, international law doesn't recognize Crimea as that. Okay, whatever. Or this other button, which is I'm going to lose all of my country and everyone in it, but at least I get to stick it to the West. It doesn't make any sense.
Okay, so there's this political theory when it comes to nuclear weapons. I don't exactly know what its name is, to be 100% real with you. However, the theory is basically like this, that it will not just begin with, everyone sets off their nuclear weapons at once. No, it will be a slow escalation of usage of small tactical nuclear weapons. And that over time would lead to a nuclear holocaust, okay? This idea that everyone's just going to launch their nuclear weapons at once is silly. But the idea that there would be a small usage of tactical nuclear weapons over a span of time that escalates into a full-blown nuclear conflict that leads to a nuclear holocaust, that's entirely realistic. And that's exactly what we're speculating. And in fact, it's a complete straw man to say that everyone's going to set up the nuclear bombs at once.
Okay, so I was being nice, but I'm gonna be less nice now. So first off,
be prepared for like Yankee Tankie level, like 8,000.
Okay, when I'm saying being less nice is I'm gonna get to the point because I was kind of holding this in my back pocket, but Russia would still have access to the Black Sea.
Why would it still have access to the Black Sea? Why do you believe that?
It has other territory touching the Black Sea. It could make another naval base somewhere else. Wouldn't be as good, but they could. Why can't they just do that?
And by doing that, you're talking about them losing a massive amount of industrial capability and import-export capability.
Yeah, it would. They could lose it, but they could try to build it back up somewhere else, so they could still have access to the Black Sea.
You're talking about knocking the Russian people into a massive amount of poverty and economic crisis.
They're already doing that right now through the war. The war can become more damaging than loss of access to the Black Sea fleet.
right now, honestly, the ruble is stronger than ever. Right now,
but the ruble is artificially inflated, and not the
collapsing.
only way you
US dollar
document
is
a Russian
artificially
economy.
inflated.
For example,
The U.S. dollar is artificially
for example,
inflated.
like people talk about the ruble, but this is the thing is with the U.S. dollar is I can trade it internationally. The ruble, the government is stopping that.
Okay, yeah, sure. You can trade it internationally for now, but why is Israel and Saudi Arabia selling off their U.S. dollar reserves and trading for the Chinese yuan?
So again, Russia, you can't trade it internationally right now. You can do that with the U.S. dollar. And so that type of artificial control, you cannot compare the U.S. dollar to Russia in that way.
Yes,
but
you can.
Moving
Yes,
on from
you
that,
can.
there's been a 40% of Russia's planes have been grounded, actually more than 40%. You've seen like an 80 to 90% reduction in automobile sales. We've seen hundreds of thousands of people, possibly millions of people flee the country, not only for jobs, but also to dodge conscription. Russia's going through a lot.
But then you've also seen a massive
problems.
increase of oil and natural gas production, which natural
but they've also
natural
lost
gas
one of
and
their
crude.
But they've also lost one of
Natural
their main
gas and crude
consumers.
is being sent to India and being sold to profit back to Europe.
They don't have the infrastructure in place to make up the loss of European sales in India or China.
but
that's going to take like at least a decade to build up.
And well, first of all, no, it is not going to take a decade
How
to
long
build
is it
it
gonna
up.
take?
I mean, they already have a oil pipeline going through
But
the
it's not
Xinjiang
the same.
region.
It's not as big. It's not doing as much. It's not enough.
But China isn't pumping up
You
the
can't
oil.
just that's not how oil transfer works. It's not as simple as like, well, we had all this infrastructure in place in Europe. We have a little bit over here, so we're just going to take all of our sales and move it here. It's not as simple as that.
Which is why that you see Russia also selling unprocessed crude oil to India, which is India is now selling off that oil back to Europe.
You really think that with the amount of oil infrastructure that's in place, which is not the same levels as Russia had with Europe, they're going to be able to recover all of the economic negative levels that they've dealt while also conducting a very aggressive and very expensive war?
Yes.
Okay, that is completely delusional.
No. Give me the reason why I believe they're going to be able to do that, because Russia is not in this conflict alone. They have the support of a majority of the international community. I know you deny that reality, but that is a material reality that exists. When you see like all these different African countries, all these different Asian countries, China and India and Iran, you see Nicaragua and Venezuela moving in this direction. You see Cuba, you can see all these different countries, right?
Okay.
You have countries like Brazil, even under the Lula government,
you're just
like
lying.
moving in the direction of supporting Russia. No, that is.
Let me read you something then. The UN General Assembly, this is from, I think, 4 or 5 months ago. UN General Assembly demands Russia reverse course on attempted illegal annexation. Let me tell you the vote numbers here.
Let me just say, Anglo source. Go on.
The UN is an Anglo source.
You said the United Kingdom.
No, the UN. This is from the United Nations. This is from the United Nations.
You're correcting yourself. You said United Kingdom.
It doesn't matter. It's the UN, right? It's the UN. Okay. 143 nations denounced the invasion and said it should be reversed. 5 voted against it. 5.
Who controls the UN?
What? What? The UN, the United Nations.
Who controls the UN?
The General Secretary. Like, what do you mean?
The United States and the British Empire.
So we control every country's vote. We just forced them all to do that.
We can easily bribe lots of people that need financial
all
money.
Those countries. That's so you're just all those
we
countries.
We already are doing it. Okay, we're already doing it.
That means the global fight against Russia is 143 to 5. They're fucked if that's the case. If we have that many tentacles, they're never gonna win.
They are going to ultimately win this war if
against
it doesn't escalate into nuclear
143 nations. They're gonna win a war against 143 nations. They're gonna fight the whole world.
They bribed the vote. That doesn't mean they bribed the support of all these people's countries.
Germany tried to fight the whole world. It didn't work well. It didn't succeed. They tried it twice.
Here's the truth, my friends. That isn't the actual support of all the different countries in the world.
Oh, so those governments are like, we're just doing this to please America. Wow. Okay. So how would I be able to check those countries?
Let me fucking finish here. Yes, that would mean that they are being bribed to do that. But fundamentally,
do you have any evidence of that?
All these. You can already look at the IMF. The IMF is how they give out their bribes.
How did the IMF bribe people on the Ukraine issue to make them vote this way?
It's not just the Ukraine issue. It's U.S. imperialism as a whole.
How did they do it on this issue specifically, though? Because
they do it on all. No, you don't understand here.
Oh, and I shouldn't ask for evidence.
Just Ukraine.
Okay, sorry.
It isn't just Ukraine. It is fundamentally the U.S. imperialists as a whole. The U.S. imperialists use the IMF as a mechanism in which to get votes through the UN. This is something what we've been able to historically track.
How did they do it here?
The same way they did it with all the other countries.
Can you point to any of the loans to prove it?
We could see the loans that got sent to countries in South America.
Which countries?
During the pink tide, the first pink tide out of the Soviet Union. We can see
30, 40 years ago. What does that have to do with Ukraine?
With 30, 40 years ago has to do with this is the historical.
We gave them money 30 years ago saying if Russia invades Ukraine, you got to vote this way. Come on, dog.
And that money continued to be sent to align with the U.S. imperialists on certain issues. There's NGOs. There's all these CIA operatives that exist in all these different countries, trying to force these governments not just to destabilize them with color revolutions, but also to get their support in the international community, even if it's only symbolic, because it gives propaganda machine in the United States the means in which to make people believe that the international community is actually on the side of the U.S. imperialist.
So it's not that all these countries made public statements where they're like, hey, we condemn it, not only in the UN, but
as I said, words don't mean anything.
So,
actions do.
Okay, what about the weapons being sent from Morocco?
I don't know what you're referencing.
Morocco sent tanks to Ukraine for them to use it in an aid package.
Okay, so Morocco is doing the orders of the U.S. imperialists.
It's just that you said that the majority of African countries support the Russian invasion, but from the map I'm looking at, the majority of them actually don't. The majority of them voted against it in the UN, and we have multiple African countries sending weapons.
Voting doesn't matter. Voting doesn't matter.
How many African countries?
Voting doesn't matter.
How many African countries sent weapons to Russia?
How many Africa's not in a position in most scenarios to be able to send weapons to any country.
We have African countries sending weapons to Ukraine. Morocco.
Yes, and I'm sure that a lot of American politicians and NGOs and CIA operatives and the IMF and all these other shady organizations send a lot of bribes. This is the historical pattern of the United States.
What bribes did we send to Morocco?
Why do you need this Anglo-box descriptoid?
Well, no, you made an accusation. I want you to back it up. No.
This is the pattern that we've seen throughout human history.
Well, you're saying just because there's a pattern of something does not mean it happened again, right? If that was the case, then we just lock up people forever, never let them out of prison because they murdered once, they might murder again, you know?
I'd say what the hell you just said again?
Okay. Just because there's a pattern does not mean that in Morocco's case, or any of all these cases in Africa, and all these votes, that means that they did it again. And you haven't even necessarily established that they do it 100% of the time, or in this scenario. I just want proof. That's all I'm asking for proof. Not saying, well, one time they did it, so they did it again. So that's not proof.
Yes.
That's not proof.
That is proof. It is proof.
You have no documents. You have no statements. You have no financial transaction. You have nothing.
Do you really think that all of this kind of stuff that happens behind closed doors is going to be publicly accessible to the average American?
Okay.
Actually think that.
So
you actually believe all this stuff isn't classified information?
The problem is that you could make a million conspiracies that way, saying I don't need evidence. America's done shady things before, so they're probably doing it again here. And then I could just use that to justify any conspiracy with no evidence, meaning I'll believe a bunch of crackpot bullshit with no proof.
It still has to deal with material reality, and we see the organization that's happening between Russia and China and India and Iran and Syria and all these different other countries. We understand that these countries are operating against U.S. imperialism, and we also understand that the U.S. imperialists have their own sphere of influence, that they're also influencing other countries.
Why is it that basically... Wait. Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question about the UN, though. Why is it that every time there's a vote on Israel, we have Israel, the United States, and Australia, and those are the three countries that'll back up Israel basically every scenario, but everybody else votes against them? So if the United States controlled the UN, why isn't the UN always voting in favor of Israel?
Because surprisingly, Dylan, Jews do not control the world.
That's not my. No, I'm not saying the Jews control. I don't know why you made that implication.
I mean, that's what I'm getting.
saying,
it sounds like you're telling me that the Jews control the world.
Am I really saying that? Can you give me a more?
Sounds like that's what you're saying to me.
Is this one of the times where you lie in order to win? Is this one of the examples of it?
I'm saying that it sounds like to me that you're saying that Jews control the world.
I'm saying
I didn't realize I was debating with Nick Fuentes today. Damn.
Yeah, it comes out of me sometimes. I'm very sorry. But in this instance,
Dylan Burns, accidental anti-Semite.
well, I thought that was me just showing my true colors. How is it accidental? Anyway, the United States. My question to you is: if the United States controls the UN and Israel is one of America's top allies, and every single time the UN vote, the United States usually votes with them, including in these instances, why is it that the majority of nations in the UN vote against Israel, and it's usually just America, Australia, and Israel that vote in favor when it comes to these? For example, the
Jews do not control the world.
I'm asking you about America because Israel is an American ally. Why is America not whipping the UN in shape in favor of Israel?
Because Israel is not exactly in the same place as they are of other allies of theirs.
We give Israel billions of dollars.
We know that
they are one of our top allies.
Israel is selling off their reserves of U.S. dollar.
We are giving them billions of dollars.
We've done an action in which pushes the U.S. imperialists away from being able to get this, be able to justify the support of Israel.
This problem I'm talking about when these UN votes didn't just happen recently. It's been like this for the last forever, ever since they've done settlement expansion, a lot of the egregious action of the Israeli state. And the UN has always, usually voted against Israel, and it's always America, Australia, and maybe a few of America's allies that end up backing Israel. And so if it's that's the reason why now we've dumped them. That's a recent development.
I will tell you exactly why. Okay. Israel is not in the position to actually convince the U.S. imperialists. They don't have enough financial backing because Jews don't control the world. They don't have the financial backing necessary to be able to lobby the U.S. government to do that. Ukraine, on the other hand, does. Because Ukraine is one of the most corrupt countries in the world.
Okay, number one, on the corruption index, Ukraine ranks, I think, 123 out of 180. Right?
It's the most corrupt country in Europe. You can't deny that.
Actually, I can. It depends on your perception.
No, I mean, literally, that was based off a U.S. statistic.
A U.S. statistic? Do you know how vague that? What U.S. statistic?
By one of the people that would be more on your side. I forget the actual name of the source, but I can tell you that it was a U.S.
It's really hard for me to just take you at your word when you admitted that you will lie in order to win earlier. This is the problem when you admit you lie.
See, but who takes you seriously because you lie all the time? You just don't admit
I never say that I lie in order to win debates. If I get cornered, go to Rob Noor.
You don't admit that you're a liar, but we know you're a liar. You pretend to be a moral. You pretend to have this moral higher ground.
You know what I do?
You pretend to have this moral higher ground. You don't have any morals to stand on. You are a hypocrite. You don't get to talk about morality when you are immoral yourself.
Go talk to Rob Noor, somebody who disagrees with me on basically everything.
I don't know who Rob Noor is.
Okay, go talk to any of the people that I've debated, but like Rob Noor would be a great example because when he confronted me on something on vaccines I didn't know, I just said, I didn't know. I'm going to read that and get back to you. I don't want to answer that. I could have easily said, no, you're wrong. You're lying. I could have done anything to get out of it. If I'm cornered, that's what I want to do because I think that's what a good person does.
Probably because that person you're talking about also supports Ukraine.
They don't.
I'm sure they do.
They don't want to send any aid whatsoever. All right, you want to make a commitment on that?
I'm not going to make a commitment on that, but I'm going to tell you this, that I don't trust anyone that you say is an honest actor.
I didn't say Rob Noor was an honest actor. I said that
you clearly implied it.
All I'm saying is that if I get cornered on something, I think the best thing to do when you don't know something to say, I don't know, and I don't think it's good to lie. And now that you say, hey, I have a statistic that proves that. Oh, do you have any proof? Well, it's from a source that you would trust. I don't remember anything about it, but it's from a source you would trust. After saying 30 minutes earlier, I will lie in order to win. It's hard for me to just take you at your word.
I didn't actually say that I would lie in order to win. I said that
you will lie in order to advance your cause.
To lie about specific. to prevent a traumatic experience in society. See, this
like
is
you
you
losing a
building a
debate.
straw man that you can neck down. This is you creating a straw man that you can kick down.
I didn't
because
create a
that's
straw
all
man.
you do.
I didn't ask you.
You did create a straw man.
Specifically
Because I never said that.
I am willing to
never
lie.
said that. You know
I'm
I didn't
okay
say
with
that.
my side
You
line.
know
I
didn't
asked
say
you.
that.
I
You know
asked
I
you.
didn't say that.
I
You know I
asked
didn't say
you.
that. You
I'm
know
just
I
gonna
didn't
mute
say
you.
that. You know
You know that I asked you whether you're okay with Russia lying about invading Ukraine or not. And then you said, I'm okay with them lying about it because it advances my cause. That is you. It happened again. Damn, you're going 0-2 for that camera, dog. That is you specifically lying, saying you're willing for your side to lie in order if it advances your cause. That is you admitting, saying I'm okay with lying, and I would personally lie if it advanced my cause. Now, I don't know to what exact standards it would have to be, but you said that. And so now I feel a little nervous anytime you say anything about a source, definitely a source that I hear of and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. And then I ask for a source and you're like, I can't provide you a source. That makes me suspect.
Okay, here's the facts, Dylan. Okay. We know you have lied about the Ukraine war. We
What
know
lie did
that
I
you
tell?
have lied about the U.S. imperialists. Because you shill for them. We know that you shill for them.
That
you
isn't a
shill
lie.
for them
Tell
all
me
the
my
fucking
lie.
time.
Tell me my lie.
It is a lie. It is a lie.
Wait,
It is an inherent lie to support U.S. imperialism.
It is inherent. So all of Americans lying. Most of Americans are lying. Most Americans are dirty liars.
If you can make arguments that sound intelligent about a topic, you know that you're lying when you're talking about these types of topics, okay? When you're talking about U.S. imperialism, you talk about the U.S. wars, you talk about all the shit that the U.S. imperialists do, and then you say, oh, this is a good thing. It's not a material lie, but it's a lie of ethos. It's a lie of the metaphysical reality of the cosmic world when you are talking about these types of situations and then shilling for U.S. imperialism.
That didn't answer my question. Give me an example of when I lied. Prove it. Give me an example when I lied.
You lie every single time that you say that Ukraine is good. That is a lie.
Do you think
Ukraine has been proven to be a Nazi epicenter of Nazism in Europe?
An
you know
epicenter.
That for a
You were
fact.
gonna call it a
But
Nazi state. You stopped yourself. Why didn't you call it a Nazi state? You were gonna say it and then you stopped yourself. Why?
Ukraine is a Nazi state.
Oh, so you do believe it's a Nazi state. Why? Okay, let me answer your question. Why would a Nazi state enable transgender protections in the workforce and LGBTQ plus protections?
Because
is that hail the transgenders? Like, what do you mean?
Because the ethos
I don't know. Doesn't make sense to me.
Because the ethos of Nazism is not within the spectrum of transgenderism and gay and sexuality.
Okay, so
that is not the modern Nazis do not care about those gender issues like they did. They did during the 1930s.
Dude, Nazis hate
under
gays.
Nazi Germany.
Nazis still
not
hate
in the
gays.
21st century.
Yes, they
not
do.
Not in the 21st century. Not to the same capacity. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a split.
There wouldn't be a split of the Nazi movement. Nazis hate Jews and gays.
There's literally There's literally a split within the Nazi movement, within fascists, both in the United States and internationally right now. One half of the fascists in the world support Russia, and the other half of the fascists in the world support Ukraine. Why do you?
Where do you get that number?
There is a political realignment that is happening right now within the whole world. Okay, so there's a political realignment that is happening, right? You have fascists that are on the side of Ukraine that are pretty pro-gay, pro-LGBTQ, and then you have fascists that are on Russia's side that are not super pro-LGBTQ. Okay, so you have to understand that the Nazis that you support, okay, the Nazi system in Ukraine that you support is pro-gay, is pro-LGBTQ, CIA
pro-Jewish
agenda.
people, it's pro every group that the Nazis hate.
Well, I mean, they literally are working with Israel. So
in your mind,
you can say,
in your mind, is it just like Nazis are actually just anyone that just doesn't like Russia? Like that is what a Nazi is.
No, because I made it very clear that there are fascists that exist that support Russia, and I don't deny that. People like Nick Fuentes does exist. There's no denying that.
Yeah, I met them at the rally, actually.
Yeah, you meant Marxist-Leninists that used to be Nazis and fascists. So that's inaccurate.
He is no. Wait.
Inaccurate.
You're saying that the former communication director for the American Nazi Party. He was a member of the Nazi Party. So you believe he doesn't hold his Nazi beliefs anymore. That he's cleansed it all. He's reformed. You believe he reformed?
Yes.
Wow, you genuinely believe he reformed?
Yes, because I actually believe people can change, unlike you.
I believe people can change, but just wait. Stop. You're not letting me finish my point. I believe people can change.
Because your point is a cuck point.
Let me. If I was to find evidence that like if I was to go out and say this guy is a mass shooter, Dylan Roof, murderer, killed a bunch of black people, and then the next day he's like, actually, Mr. Courtman, I'm not racist anymore. Last night I heard about CRT, I read about it, I'm no longer racist, you can let me go. Right? I wouldn't just assume, wow, that guy's no longer racist. I believe him. I would need to see evidence that he's made those moves. That guy, you want to know who he was there with? That guy was there with a former member of Atomwaffen, a neo-Nazi terror group. A terror group that wants to kill people in the name of Nazism.
But did he kill anyone? No.
Dog, you know, we're gonna find somebody who's like a member of ISIS, but he didn't kill anybody.
The guy
directly,
literally.
So okay.
If someone didn't kill someone but espoused a particular political ideology that advocated for killing anyone for any particular reason, and they say that they changed, I have no reason to.
This guy did this for like 20 years, and he made this shit very recently. Why didn't you just take him at his word? Why are you so willing to trust somebody who is the communication director of the American Nazi Party?
Because people can change.
Okay, how do you know he changed?
Well, clearly he's going to an anti-war rally against a Nazi government, in particular in the case of Ukraine.
So you're saying that Nazis can't support the invasion? Because I mean, I can show you Russian neo-Nazis who do support the invasion, who are like Zig Heil, like those types. Nazi tattoos.
Fascists and Nazis can support it. Either side of the war.
Really? That's a change from our last debate. Last debate, you said it was impossible for Nazis to support the invasion. You said it was impossible. Do you roll that back? Do you roll it back?
But here's the caveat here. Okay. Well, they can change their positions. The ethos of what positions they support after they declare they have changed largely dictates what they actually support in material reality. Right? So if you say you changed and you're not a Nazi, but you support Russia, I'm probably going to believe you because Russia's fighting Nazi states. But if you say that you're no longer a Nazi, you say that you're no longer this evil racist or whatever, but then you turn around and support Ukraine, a literal Nazi state, then I have to say,
Do you know how many?
It sounds like you didn't actually change.
Do you know how many like Russian memes I see with Zelensky with a gigantic nose and he's like rubbing his hands together and they're like, this fucking Jew bastard, and like the way they talk about him is extremely anti-Semitic, and I see that from.
And you can find just as many pro-Russian people on the that are people that not just
because you support the Russian invasion does not mean you're not a Nazi. Like you have nothing. That's nothing.
But it does mean.
Why are you so willing to accept that he's changed so easily?
It does mean that you're probably a better person than the Nazi on the other side.
What Nazi laws has the Ukrainian government implemented?
Well, first of all, Nazis tend to ban communist parties, which is something that the Ukrainian government did. They banned almost every communist party.
Is it illegal to be a communist in Ukraine?
It's illegal to have be a member of a communist party, of the parties that used to exist in Ukraine.
It's not illegal. Wait, let me be clear.
Of the parties that were banned in Ukraine, you cannot identify legally with those parties, whether they're communist or otherwise, which is a trend of a fascist state to ban political parties.
So if you ban political parties, that looks like a fascist state to you?
Yes.
Okay, so what about all the political parties Russia banned? In fact, Vladimir Putin at one point even banned the Communist Party and banned communist symbols.
Hold on. I agree with you. I agree that Vladimir Putin should not have banned those political parties.
Does that mean he's a fascist?
Okay.
No, it doesn't mean he's a fascist.
So why is that proof Ukraine's a fascist but not Russia?
Because of the ethos of what he supports.
Because of the ethos. Okay, so it's okay when Putin does it. It's not okay when Zelensky does it.
Here's a primary example, right? What does the Ukrainian government do? They ban the Orthodox Church, except for the few little factions that still align with the Ukrainian government, as the only parts of the Orthodox
Why
Church
do you think they
that
did that?
are still allowed in Ukraine. They did it because they're pagans and they're Nazis, and paganism and Nazis are intriguingly unique.
I have never met a single pagan in Ukraine.
Pagans are Nazis.
Pagan.
Pagans are Nazis.
All pagans are Nazis. You're hearing it from Yankee Tankie right now. Right now, you're hearing it from Yankee Tankie that all pagans, every pagan that has ever existed is a Nazi. And that's why we need to crush down the pagans just like we do the Nazis. That's what we need to do. Crush the pagans. Crush the Nazis. Crush the living shits of those pagan Nazis, anti-Christian, anti-Muslim, anti-Jewish, anti-Abrahamic alliance of the based religions in the world.
So you want to ban all the non-Abrahamic religions or something? Is that what you want to do?
I want to ban all the pagans.
Why? What about paganism makes it inherently Nazi?
Have you actually studied what Hitler believes in?
I know Hitler himself may have believed in paganism.
Was a pagan.
But paganism existed way before Hitler.
And that goes to show you that paganism inherently leads to Nazism, like capitalism does.
Can I give you a quote?
I mean, it's your show. You can give me a quote if you want to.
I don't. It's too long to find the quote. But are you familiar with Hitler's views on Islam?
Okay, I'm familiar with his views on Islam.
He really liked it,
and he was incorrect about his interpretations of Islam.
Okay, so why can I not just believe the same thing about paganism when it comes to it? Why is it when Hitler praised Islam, that's different? Islam's not Nazi.
Yes,
when Hitler praised paganism, that makes it Nazi.
Reality. Because the reality
what's the material reality of paganism that makes it Nazi?
Is that Islam is a religion of love. That is what makes the difference.
So there's no like violence in the Islamic religion.
No more violence that there has historically been in any religion.
I mean, there's definitely violent parts of the Quran that talks about doing violent acts and like it. I mean,
sure, and there's also violent acts in the Bible and the Torah.
Exactly.
And just about every single holy book.
I agree with that.
Of course, you would assume that that you would be an atheist based on your perspective on this, right?
I don't think it's good when a book that claims
actually no. Hold up. I'm curious, Dylan. What are you? Are you a Christian? Are you Muslim?
I really would rather not talk about this topic with you.
Oh, I found something you're scared to talk about.
Do you know the reason I'm scared to talk about it is that when my mom died due to heroin.
Because you're a pagan.
Because when my mother died due to heroin addiction, one of the few connections I had with her was her Christian faith. And it's something
Okay, so you're a Christian. Okay.
And it's something that I toil a lot with because I disagree with a lot of the tenets of Christianity when it comes to the Old Testament and when it comes to the way a lot of Christians act in the United States. And so it makes me hesitant to continue to be a Christian. And so I don't like to talk about it because it's a very sore spot for me. So I would like to not talk about my personal faith.
I understand. I will just say this much. You sound like a secret pagan to me, but that's besides the point.
Why would I believe in paganism?
Because you're a Nazi who supports the Nazi state of Ukraine.
What beliefs do I have that's Nazi? And if you say just supporting Ukraine, there it is. Yeah. So you can be a Nazi. Let me be clear. You can be a Nazi, and you can be okay with Judaism, okay with Russian people, okay with Slavic people, okay with gay people.
If you support Russia. Well, actually, in that case, if you support Ukraine.
So the majority of Americans are Nazis then.
A majority of Americans are propagandized to be Nazis. That is technically correct. It's not their fault, but it's a fact.
Again, your one thing that said that made Ukraine a Nazi state was that they banned certain parties that were that aligned with the Russian state.
Yes, and here's another thing. Here's another thing that they're aligned with the U.S. imperialists and the U.S. imperialists. And remember, the U.S. imperialists. Who are they a part of? NATO, right? And what was the creation of NATO? If you remember, there was a bunch of different people that were the old Nazi German government that instead of being trialed for their genocidal, terrible, inhuman acts, got to join NATO as heads of security councils and all kinds of other positions.
So let me ask you a question. If you allowed Nazi generals to be a part of your military, that makes you a Nazi state?
If the whole ideology that you are promoting is ultimately Nazism,
anything? Come on, that's not a difficult question. If you allow Nazi generals to join your military, is that good, bad? Does it make you Nazi?
I'm going to say no, and the reason I'm going to say no is because I know that there are also fascist generals that exist in the Wagner Group or whatever. Okay, so
that wasn't my point at all. But you just admitted that you're okay with Nazi generals. But okay, whatever.
Look, this is the material reality. There are some fascists that are on the side of trying to bring down the unipolar world.
When there's Nazis on your side, it's okay. When there's Nazis on the other side, it's bad.
Yes, because the main contradiction is not fascism. The main contradiction is not fascism. You don't care about Nazism. The main contradiction is not fascism. The main contradiction is not fascism. The main contradiction is imperialism in the 21st century.
Okay, and to be clear, Russia invading another country while saying that their culture's fake, that's not imperialism.
Again,
except our culture.
It is not
like
imperialism because Russia does not control the economic interest of the world.
They want to control the economic interests of Ukraine. That's why they invaded Crimea. That's why they invaded Crimea.
They don't currently do.
They invaded Crimea. You said that they wanted Crimea.
They do not control.
They
do not control. They do.
Yeah, there you go.
You're a cuck-ass bitch.
Whip dog. Get on the leash. Get on the leash.
Cuck.
Got him. Okay. So you said that Russia needs Crimea in order to function economically. And that's why they invaded. That's why they need it. That means you're saying that Russia invaded and annexed that territory in large part for economic benefit. Because they wanted a military base there and they wanted the economic benefit. That is imperialism.
Okay, so why it's not imperialism is because Crimea is not the epic center of the whole financial world system.
It doesn't need to be imperialism.
No, it does. It does need to be for it to be imperialism.
No, it doesn't. And this is a dumb Leninist version of imperialism.
Yes, it does. No, that is what real imperialism is. You say,
so it's imperialism when America does it. So there's nothing that Russia could do that's imperialism. So you're saying if Russia was to invade and conquer Libya tomorrow and annex it and say, you will all Russian now, you must speak Russian, that wouldn't be imperialism to you.
Let me tell you what imperialism would mean if Russia is.
Can you answer my question? Answer my question. If Russia was to invade Libya and say they all have to speak Russian, you all have to speak Russian. Answer my question. Answer my question. I thought you called me a cuck.
The way that you are phrasing this fucking question is a cuck shit.
Answer the question. I'm not answering your fucking question. If you don't answer the question, then you have to leave.
Really? You're going to be that much of a cuck?
If you don't answer my question because you're cowardly, you have to leave.
Here's the answer to my question. I don't know what your fucking question was because I wasn't fucking listening. So yes, no, and maybe.
Okay. If Russia invades Libya and says all of you need to speak Russian now, and you all need to go into the mines and get resources from me, that's not imperialism.
No, and I'm going to tell you what imperialism would be, okay? Imperialism, okay, if Russia were to actually be in the control of the financial interest of the whole world. That's the dumbest definition of imperialism I ever heard. No, it is the most logical position of imperialism. And you're preventing other societies and other countries from being able to economically prosper and grow, preventing people from being able to break out of poverty. That is an example of imperialism. That is the basis, the ethos of what imperialism is. It has nothing to do with just because big government or big country invades small country. It has nothing to do with if one country has some financial pressure that they can apply to another country. That's not what imperialism is.
Do you believe that Germany? Do you believe the German government during the Kaiser engaged in imperialism?
Did who and what? Say it again.
The German government, the Kaiserreich. Do you believe the Kaiserreich engaged in imperialism?
I'm going to say that they were a force that were doing things that were wrong, but I would not
They had
imply
colonies.
that they were.
They had colonies in Africa.
Sure. That's colonialism. That's not imperialism.
It was 100% imperial. The Kaiserreich engaged in
colonialism is bad. Colonialism is bad.
Can I get a commitment?
Colonialism.
Can I get a commitment that the Germans did not engage in imperialism ever? Can I get a commitment on that?
Yes, they never engaged with imperialism. They engaged with colonialism.
This is so
because
silly.
they're colonialists. I mean, colonialism is still bad. What the fuck? I mean, why do you have to bring it to?
Colonialism is part and parcel of imperialism.
No, colonialism can begot imperialism, but it itself is not inherently imperialism.
If you engage in colonialism, you engage in imperialism. Period.
No, you're wrong. Colonialism can begot imperialism, but it itself is not imperialism.
There can be competing imperial structures. For example, World War I.
No, they can't.
If you listen to American socialists during the First World War,
I think the American socialists during the First World War were wrong.
So you thought we should have fought in World War I?
No, I don't think we should have fought in World War One.
But that's what they were saying at the time. So why were they wrong?
Okay, they were wrong in the particular context of other countries being imperialist.
Yeah,
because there were no imperialist powers at that point by the definition of imperialism.
Every single socialist at the time that was trying to stop the war, everybody that talked about it afterwards, including the soldiers involved, said that it was a war of empires. It was a war of empires. It was a war of imperialism.
Empires are not imperialism. Empires are not imperialism. Empires are not imperialism. Empires are not imperialism. Empires are not imperialism. Empires are not imperialism. The Roman Empire was not an imperialist state. The Roman Empire was not an imperialist state.
It was.
No. The Ottoman Empire was not an imperialist state. In fact, the Ottoman Empire was the first example of socialism in the world.
That is okay. So you're just repeating infrared talking points now.
But it's correct.
But it's like a joke point. It's not even like a real point he actually believes. He just says.
Well, shit, my fucking power just got turned out.
Wow.
I mean, you can still hear me because I'm on data on my phone, but my power just went out. I gotta go check what the circuit breaker is doing. Give me a second.
Oh. Wow, they told us that us Ukraine supporters would really feel like the heat when it came to like energy and like electricity because of the energy sanctions, but apparently it hit the Russian supporters first. Wow. I mean, we could just end this now. We've been going on for too long anyway. It's like 7:46. Your power's gone out. Like, just go deal with your power, okay?
Well, let me just say this. That even though you cannot see me right now, that Yankee Tankie has won this debate. I have...
Okay, that's enough. That's enough. That's enough on that. Oh my god. Many people would ask, why did we engage in that? And my answer to you would be, I don't know. I don't exactly know why I engaged in that. I do not know.